I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Burns.
And this is the Baseball History Time Machine.
Although, for the past 2 months, it's been the Sluggers of the 1940s Time Machine.
And I have enjoyed that miniseries very much.
Me too, and I'm very, very curious to see if it's over or are we doing part 5 today.
Now, see, everybody out there, Burns, I have not told him what we're doing today. So I've made my notes and everything, but he doesn't know if it's part 5 or if it's something else yet. I made very specific. And we asked you guys out there if you wanted a part 5 or if they wanted us to move on to greener pastures, and people got back to us about it.
And what did they choose?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to proudly present today's episode, Sluggers of the 1940s, part 5.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. That's what people want. And if they tell me so on Patreon, I'm especially inclined to listen.
The public has a voice.
Yeah, they do.
The paying public even more so.
And somebody even upped their money on Patreon.
Nice.
And said that, yeah, he wants the Sluggers part 5. So, and to everyone else out there, you too can be the coolest kid in class by joining our team at patreon.com. You just search for Indy Nidell's Baseball History Time Machine. And Burns, I'm actually thinking, finally, after this is our 20th episode, after all this time, of adding a membership tier with an actual perk.
An actual perk, you say?
Well, I mean, other than getting the episodes a day or 3 early and ad-free, which is what you get now as a paying member. But I was thinking of uploading transcripts of these episodes there, maybe with us making some annotations or some comments on them, so should people be so inclined, they can have some good reading material, or they can use them for research, or they can use them for whatever. It's
kind of like keeping score at a baseball game with your own scorebook, and that's a great idea. I actually like that idea.
I mean, but if you wanted like some information that I said 3 weeks ago, you can either go back now and listen to the whole thing and try and figure out where it is, or it's a lot quicker if you just use the script.
Like a quick reference.
Okay. Now, since this is episode 20, again, it might take some time to get it done, but people might wish to part with some of their hard-earned cash for something like that.
Okay, let's get on it. But first, let's get on to more, I cannot believe we're doing this, more Sluggers of the 1940s.
Right. And I have Sluggers to cover, MVPs even. One guy I am not covering, though, is 1941 National League MVP, Brooklyn Dodgers first baseman Dolph Camilli.
Dolph? As in Adolf?
Yep, Adolph Louis Camilli. For some odd reason, the name Adolf was more popular before the 1940s than after the 1940s.
What could it possibly have been? And why are we not covering him?
He did have 8 straight seasons of over 20 homers, so he's a slugger, and 5 of them with over 100 RBIs. But of those 8, 5 happened in the 1930s, and the others were 40, 41, and 42. So he should be covered in a future Sluggers of the 1930s series.
But you can tell us about his MVP here, though, right?
Yeah, sure. He led the National League with 34 homers and 120 RBIs and hit .285.
Solid, yeah.
Those Dodgers were great, winning 100 games, but falling to the Yankees in the series. And this is a series primarily remembered today for a single play that happened in the 9th inning of Game 4.
Which I imagine you are going to tell me about right now, in immaculate detail, of course.
Sidetrack accepted. And the guy who on Patreon who changed his pledge, he even wrote, "I like the sidetracks." So I like the sidetracks.
I'm a big fan of the. I am the sidetrack guy. I am here to sidetrack.
But you lead me places I don't expect that I'm going to go on these episodes. Yeah. Okay, the Yankees won the AL pennant that year by 17 games, but people were expecting a pretty good series since Brooklyn was really hot too.
Okay, and 1941, DiMaggio streak and all?
Yeah, sure, a lot going on that season. Anyway, the series did not disappoint. The first 3 games were all one-run games. The Yankees won Game 1 3-2. The Dodgers won Game 2 3-2. The Yankees won Game 3 2-1. And in Game 4, the Dodgers were 1 strike away from winning 4-3 and evening up the series.
Oh, 1 strike away, the nightmare. Oh boy, this is going to go downhill.
Very much so. Now, there is a Swedish expression, "det blev pannkaka," which explains pretty well.
It became a pancake?
Yeah, the expression actually comes, for everyone out there, from when a cook ruins a souffle and it's flat, like a pancake. But I prefer to use the plural and say it in English, "it went pancakes," which is an awesome expression, which is better in English than in Swedish, too.
I actually like that more. I'm going to start saying that, too.
I think everyone out there should start saying "it went pancakes" when things didn't work out. Well, it very much went pancakes for the Dodgers, thanks to 4-time All-Star catcher Mickey Owen. Okay, Fireman Casey is on the mound for Brooklyn, and Tommy Henrik is at bat with a full count and nobody on base. Full count, right?
Oh.
Right? 2 outs, right? Casey throws what is described as a jaw-dropping curveball, which Henrik misses by at least a foot, completely fooled. So game over, right?
No?
Nope. The ball fools Owen as well. It hits his glove, goes all the way back to the backstop. Drop third strike, so Henrik runs to first so fast there's not even a throw to try to get him. And the wheels come off. Joe DiMaggio singles. Charlie Keller doubles off the right field wall, scoring 2 runs. Bill Dickey walks, and Joe Gordon doubles to left, scoring 2 more before the fireman can put out the fire. Yankees are now up 7-4 in the middle of the ninth instead of losing the game 4-3. And the Dodgers go down in the bottom half of the frame. And now instead of evening the series 2 games each, the Yankees are up 3-1, and they win Game 5 and the series the next day behind Tiny Bonham's 4-hitter.
Poor Mickey Owen, man. Is that all he's going to be remembered for today?
It basically is. Although he was one of the best catchers of his era.
But to be fooled like that on a ball, like...
That you called. You asked for the curve. He's the catcher.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, if it curves more than it usually curves, if he throws the perfect curve and you're not expecting that, I mean, angle of curve or whatever, or the amount of drop.
And Hugh Casey, Fireman Casey, was one of the first real relief specialist stars.
Oh, that makes it
You
even
had
worse.
Johnny Murphy, Furple Marbury, Ace Adams, but Hugh Casey was the first one whose nickname was like Fireman, because now you get the Fireman of the Year award, because that was the first time that you put out the fire. That's when Hugh Casey comes in. So, well, okay. Anyhow, where are we?
Well, that's a good sidetrack, because I think before that you only said a single sentence about Dolph. What's his name? 1941 MVP.
Dolph Camilli. Yeah.
Yeah, Dolph Camilli.
Dolph,
right.
What's his name? I like that you remember the Adolf part.
Of course I remember Camilli. I'm not going to remember that. It's a hard surname.
But Dolph Camilli was a real consistency machine. He was pretty much hitting more or less 25 homers, 100 RBIs, 100 walks, and 100 strikeouts a season for his 8-year peak.
100 strikeouts a year. Wait, when we covered the Maggio brothers, Vince was the NL strikeout king of that era, correct?
That he was, other than Dolph Camilli. Vince DiMaggio, as we saw, led the league in strikeouts every full season he played, except for 1941, when Camilli topped in with 115. When Camilli struck out 113 times in 1934, before Vince got going, it was the first time a National League player topped 100 since 1906, and was only 3 off the National League record. So, in addition to 1941, Camilli also led the league in whiffs in 1934, 35, 39, and finished second in 36, 37, 38, and 42.
Okay, what about 1940?
He finished third.
Who won?
Okay, this is interesting. I'm glad you asked me that. Who won then is a guy who is very much a baseball footnote, a guy named Chet Ross, who in his one and only one career full season struck out 127 times for the Braves, setting a rookie record. Though he did also hit 17 homers, which was 10th in the National League that year.
Well, I mean, can we have a toast to Chet Ross?
Sure, to Chet Ross.
To Chet.
There we go.
To Chet.
Good old Chet Ross. I mean, the war and all, 1940. So.
Yeah.
But had there been a Rookie of the Year award back then, Chet Ross may well have won it. Either him or Babe Young of the Giants.
Babe Young?
We will do an episode about all the people named Babe one day, which has been on my list for a while. Babe and Ty. We need to do those.
So no pitchers could have won a hypothetical 1940 Rookie of the Year award.
Vern Olsen, Cubs rookie, went 13-9 with a 2.97 ERA, so maybe him. But this episode is not rookie stars of the 1940s.
Which would also be a great episode, or even a miniseries like this one.
And it would, but this is Sluggers of the 1940s.
I mean, I should also point out that so far today we have talked about 0 Sluggers of the 1940s.
That is true.
And that's my fault.
And we're nearly 10 minutes in, so yeah. I will fix that now. The 1941 World Series segues me into 2 of them, though only one of those was ever an MVP.
And which is that?
Joe Gordon, 1942 American League MVP.
Which he won despite Ted Williams actually winning the Triple Crown that year, right?
That is true. Flash Gordon, because obviously back then you're going to be.
Of course.
Flash Gordon came up with the Yankees in 1938, and he played in 11 seasons. He was away because of the war in 1944 and 45. But from his rookie year, he never played fewer than 110 games in a season. So, he was always, he was a model of consistency. And with over 900 runs scored and 900 RBI in just 11 seasons. The first 6 years of his career, The Yankees won 5 pennants and 4 World Series. And then after the war, Gordon went to the Indians and he starred for their 1948 World Series winning squad. Gordon's best seasons were 1942 and 1948.
So what was his MVP year like?
In 1942, Gordon topped a 300 average for the only time in his career, hitting 322. And I think he was focusing on his average and contact because for the first time in his career, he hit fewer than 20 homers.
So what was his best homer total?
That would be in 1948, when he hit 32 homers and drove in 124 runs with the Indians. And I should point out that even though he only appeared in 11 seasons, when Joe Gordon retired, he had the second highest career home run total of any second baseman in history, 253, behind only Rogers Hornsby.
Oh, wow, that's pretty fast company right there.
Gordon wouldn't be passed by another second baseman until Joe Morgan and Ryan Sandberg did it.
Both also MVPs.
Gordon is still 10th all-time in the second baseman's career home run list, but everyone ahead of him played in at least 300 more games.
Okay, fair enough. But who has the record now for second baseman?
Jeff Kent with 377.
Also an MVP.
Yeah, also I see a pattern.
Yeah, for sure.
Gordon was teammates with another slugger I should say a few words about today. The guy who made it to first on Mickey Owens' dropped third strike, Tommy Henrich.
So what's his story?
Well, he was nicknamed Old Reliable, so that should give you a clue right there.
Gives it away.
Let's see. 11 seasons, 5-time All-Star, mainly right fielder, finished as high as 6th in the MVP race, which he did twice in a row in 48 and 49. He was also fast, not just making it to first on the drop strike, but he led the league in triples twice. Oh, wow. So he usually batted second or third, and he had guys like Joe DiMaggio, Charlie Keller, and Flash Gordon hitting behind him. So he was more a run-scored guy than an RBI guy. He only once had as many as 100 RBI, which was 100 exactly, but he scored as many as 138 runs in a season, and he was a slugger in spite of that. He was also an excellent fielder.
And what about his background, though?
He came from Ohio, and he had really protective parents that refused to let him play football, which was popular in Ohio. But his town had no baseball teams, so he grew up playing softball. But after being signed with the Indians, he was great in the minor leagues. The thing is, they didn't bring him up to the majors in spite of him burning up the minors. And he was told in 1937 to report to the Milwaukee Brewers in the American Association. But they were unaffiliated with a major league team. So Henrich wrote to baseball commissioner Judge Landis wondering about this and who he actually belonged to. And Landis declared him a free agent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so half of the MLB teams wanted a piece of him because, again, he burned up the minors. And he signed with the Yankees.
Of course.
Thing is, they were stacked with outfield talent.
Yeah.
Joe DiMaggio, George Selkirk, Merrill Hogue, Roy Johnson. Sports writer Arthur Daly wrote that Henrich told him once that when he first arrived in New York and checked into his hotel, the bellboy sneered at him and asked how he's going to break into that lineup. Has he ever seen those guys hit? And Henrich said, no, not yet, but they've never seen me hit either.
I mean, that's a fair question, but that's a great answer. That's a good attitude and a great mindset to have.
Well, Moss Joe McCarthy soon dealt Roy Johnson to Boston, and Henrich was in.
And he succeeded.
And he succeeded. When Henrich died in 2009, at the age of 96, former teammate Bobby Brown explains how clutch he was. If we were ahead 10-1 or 10-2, he was just average. If we were behind 10-1 or 10-2, same thing. But get him in a big game, and he was terrific. And I guess he was. I mean, being smart enough and fast enough to get on first after Owens dropped strike in the 41 series, being the hero of the final game of the 1949 series as the Yankees beat the Red Sox to go to the series, then 3 days later hitting the first walk-off homer in series history to win game 1-0 in the bottom of the ninth. He was the real deal.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I'm going to mention another Yankee who does count as a slugger, even though his career numbers might not look like it. Nick Etten.
Nick Etten? What was his career numbers like?
He hit 89 homers in a 9-year career.
I mean, that doesn't sound like much of a slugger.
He won a homer title, though, so by default, you're a homer.
Okay.
And he was the textbook case of the wartime star.
Oh.
In 1943, 44, and 45, he hit 14, 22, and 18 homers, which was good enough for 8th, 1st, and 2nd in the American League.
He led the league with 22 homers?
22 homers. And he led the AL in 1945 with 111 RBIs, which is kind of a normal number. 22 homers.
Okay, so hang on. Did he win an MVP?
No, no, he didn't. Good question. When he led the league in homers and then the next year in RBI, he finished 23rd and 15th in the MVP voting.
Why so low?
Well, those offensive numbers don't say anything about his defense at first base, which I'll be polite and say was abysmal.
Okay.
In fact, Bill James has him ranked with Dick Stewart, Dr. Strangeglove, as the worst of all ever at that position.
I'm sorry, Dr. Strangeglove is the best nickname we have had. So that's like it. Okay, Briss Lord, Human Eyeball is awesome. Is awesome. But Dr. Strangeglove, that is perfection. Mwah,
now, Stewart was a serious masher with the Pirates and the Red Sox.
Okay.
Around when the movie Dr. Strangelove came out, right?
Makes sense.
So, but it's a brilliant nickname.
It's a great nickname.
Here's a fun Dick Stewart story that explains how good he was a fielder. How good is in air quotes, right? He was such a fielder that once, when he was playing with the Red Sox, a candy wrapper blew onto the field, and Stewart picked it up, and the crowd gave him a standing ovation.
That is brilliant banter by Sox fans. Like 10 out of 10 for that.
Yeah. You got to love the Red Sox fan for that, giving him a standing ovation.
That is madness. That's so funny.
Now Nick Etten, as good a fielder or as bad a fielder, whatever you want to call it, Etten did not often go for balls hit to his right, hit between first and second. And second baseman Danny Murtaugh asked him about this and said, can you start going for more? And Etten looked at Murtaugh and he replied, this is a quote, "Son, they pay old Nick to hit. You can't hit, so you catch all those balls and I'll knock in the runs for both of us."
That's such a shitty, toxic attitude to have.
It really is.
That's so bad.
And he couldn't field. And then in 1946, when a lot of stars came back from the war, Nick Etten could no longer even hit.
I mean, that makes sense, right?
And after 108 games in 1946 and 14 in 1947, he was out of the majors. Although in 1948, with Oakland, the Oakland Oaks in the Pacific Coast League, he hit 43 homers and drove in 155 runs. And that is all the Yankees I'm going to talk about today.
Thank God. Who else you got?
I've got Cardinals, right? I've got Whitey Kurowski.
Never heard of him.
Pretty much nobody has these days, and he did have a short career. He appeared in just 9 seasons. That's it. All with St. Louis, and most of his games were at third base. Now, 6 of those seasons were full seasons. In 4 of those, he was an all-star, and in 1, they didn't have the all-star game because of the war. Yeah. And in 5 of those 6 seasons, he got MVP votes. 5 times, he finished 7th or better in the league in homers, too, with a high of 27 in 1947.
Right.
He also hit for average, topping 300 3 times. And his best season was either 1945, when he hit 323 with 21 homers and 102 RBI, or 1947, when he hit 310 to go along with those 27 homers and 104 RBIs. But there was something unusual about Whitey Kurowski.
And what was that?
It goes back to his childhood.
Okay.
You see, Burns, and everybody out there, when he was a little boy, he fell off a fence onto some broken glass, and he cut his arm really badly.
Oh.
Badly enough, because, we have antibiotics now and stuff like that, but this is way back then. Yeah. Badly enough that he got blood poisoning, and that infected the bone, and he got osteomyelitis. And there was a real fear that they would have to amputate his lower arm. But they managed to save it by removing, 4 inches, which is, I guess, 10 centimeters for you Europeans out there, of his ulna, which is the longer one of his arm bone. Seriously, they took off 4 inches of the bone, and they also took out the infected tissue.
Oh, imagine being a kid and having to go through that. That's traumatic.
But imagine growing up and wanting to be a baseball player and going through that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after that, having one arm that is markedly shorter than the other one and misshapen.
Oh.
Kurowski's Saber bio says that to compensate, he developed serious arm muscles.
Yeah.
And he played softball 5 weeknights a week and baseball all day from morning till night, Saturdays and Sundays. And he also refused to give up playing third base, despite the fact that you have to have a good throwing arm to play third base.
I'm guessing he was right-handed.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say that? Yeah, he was right. It was his right hand. And it caused problems at the plate, too. Think of a right-handed hitter. He had to crowd the plate since his back arm was shorter than his front arm, so, he had to get up close.
Of course.
And because of that, he got hit by a lot of pitches. And since when you swing like that, it caused his wrists to turn over, so he was a dead pull hitter, to the point that second basemen often played him on the shortstop side of second base, like when he got it to the majors. And shifts like that were still really unusual.
But he could hit 300 with power, so he was doing something right.
He was doing something right. Karowski and Stan Musial both came up in the stretch in 1941.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Stan Musial last time. Stan the man.
Stan the man.
Stanislas. Baby, don't hurt me.
They were both rookie regulars, right? They were both rookie stars in 1942. And it looked like they were the final ingredients needed for a winner, because the Cardinals began their 1940s dynasty that year, winning 4 of the next 5 pennants and 3 World Series. And the 1946 series victory might never have happened if Karowski hadn't talked a bunch of Cardinals out of jumping the team and joining the Mexican League.
That was a thing?
Oh, yes, and we will totally do an episode about it. It's on our list. The Mexican League gave the majors, the American majors, a real scare. Jorge Pascual raided rosters to try and give his league equal talent and make it the equal of the National and American leagues. It was a real top story in 1946 and a real fear, and he particularly went after the Cardinals since owner Sam Breeden was known for being cheap with salaries.
Oh, no.
And in the spring of 1946, he signed 3 Cardinals: star pitcher Max Lanier, infielder Lou Klein, who was a hot rookie from 1943, just returning from the war, and a rookie pitcher named Fred Martin.
Okay, that's insane.
They headed south of the border.
Wow.
And there were loads of rumors that the big guns, like Musial, might follow suit.
Not a good look.
Okay, this is from Karowski's Sabre bio.
Yeah.
Karowski took it upon himself to call a clubhouse meeting to clear the air. He told his teammates that he'd talked to Mexican League representatives and that he believed in getting every cent he was worth, but felt honor-bound to fulfill his St. Louis contract. He urged them to put the Mexican League business behind them and concentrate on winning the pennant. The players knew that Karowski was no front office lackey, that he had battled the club and was dissatisfied with his salary. So his words meant something, and they apparently took them to heart.
And then they went on to win the World Series.
That they did, in which Karowski hit .296. But just to get there, they had to play the first ever playoff tiebreaker series in National League history versus the Dodgers.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they finished the season with identical 96 and 58 records. Karowski was one of the stars of the best-of-3 series, which the Cardinals won in 2 straight games. He went just 1 for 4, but drew 5 walks, scored 3 runs, and drove in 3 more.
Yeah, that's pretty legendary.
And then he had a banner year in 1947, but it was his last full season.
Oh, how come?
Let's see if you can guess.
I guess something to do with his arm?
Yep. He had 13 operations on his arm in his brief career just to be able to play. He constantly fought pinched nerves and muscle damage, and in 1948 was limited to 65 games, and he hit just .214. And being a man of integrity who liked to say, and this is supposedly true from everything I've read, putting we ahead of I. He worked hard teaching rookie Eddie Kazak how to play third like a big leaguer, knowing that Kazak was his replacement.
Yeah, that's a club man. That's integrity.
And it had a reward, too, when Kazak was starting third baseman in the 1949 All-Star Game. Karowski played in 10 games that year, and that was it. But hey, for his career, he never once played for a team that finished worse than second place. And that's a pretty good feat.
Yeah, I mean, he's got character and, like, guts.
Should we have a toast to Whitey Karowski?
Yeah, I like that, dude. I like this guy.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Ross and
Cheers,
Karowski.
Whitey.
I like him, too. And talking about him reminds me of a slugger who I do not think I like.
Okay.
The man who scored the winning run in the 1946 series for the Cardinals, Enos Slaughter.
He does have a world-class name, but why don't you like him?
I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I thought as long as I mentioned him scoring, I will talk about what's called Slaughter's Mad Dash, which when I was a kid was still talked about as one of the most famous plays in history.
All right, lay it on me.
The Red Sox were heavy series favorites since they ran away with the American League pennant. But after 6 games, the series was tied up at 3 games each. In the top of the 8th inning, Sox center fielder Dom DiMaggio drives in 2 runs to tie the game at 3 runs each, right? Yeah. 8th inning, tied at 3. He pulls a muscle on the play, though, and he's replaced in center field by Leon Culbertson. In the bottom of the inning, Slaughter leads off with a single, but a failed bunt and a fly ball means he's still on first, and there are 2 outs. Harry Walker. I know it's exciting. Eh?
Yeah,
Harry Walker is at bat, and with a 2-1 count, manager Eddie Dyer calls for a hit-and-run play on the next pitch. So Slaughter is off to the races as the ball leaves Bob Klinger's hand, and Walker lines the ball into center field. Culbertson fields the ball and throws it to Red Sox shortstop Johnny Pesky. Meanwhile, Slaughter steams into third base, and he doesn't even slow down. Just rounds the corner and tears for home. And the legend says he ran right through the third base coach's stop sign. And the stunned Johnny Pesky held the ball momentarily, shocked that he was running to home, instead of throwing it immediately, allowing Slaughter to score the winning run of the World Series.
He basically caught them by surprise. Not some serious excitement and some big balls.
It is some big balls, but there are some issues with the legend. Now, if you look up like Slaughter's Mad Dash on YouTube, you can see the play on YouTube. And the replay does not show Pesky hesitating at all on making the throw.
Okay.
There are also reports, though you cannot see it on the YouTube clip, that Mike Gonzalez, the third base coach, was not trying to stop Slaughter, but was frantically waving him around to go for home. But whatever the case, Slaughter beat the throw and scored, and they won the series. And Slaughter himself later said, though, that if Dom DiMaggio was still playing center, he would not have tried to score because of Dom's incredible throwing arm, and he would have stayed at third base. There is a statue of Enos Slaughter making his slide outside of Busch Stadium in St. Louis, actually. And in 1999, the Sporting News ranked it number 10 on baseball's 25 greatest moments.
Which we very, very much have to do an episode on.
It would likely turn into another miniseries.
Yeah, I think everything will turn into a miniseries at this point. But why might you not like Sir Enos Slaughter?
Hall of Famer Enos Slaughter, because he is a Hall of Famer.
Of course.
Okay, this is a story, ladies and gentlemen out there, from my own back pages, right? A little more than a decade ago, I was in Houston, where I grew up, visiting my family, and I discovered that Solly Hemus, over 90 years old, lived in my dad's building. Hemus played with the Cards and the Phils in the 1950s and then managed the Cardinals for a few years after that. Well, I sent up a note to him explaining I'm a professional historian with a special interest in baseball history, and could we maybe have a chat about the old days?
And he said yes?
And he said yes. So I spent an hour or so sitting around talking old baseball with Solly Hemus. It was great. He was just telling me stuff about the old players and about touring with the Cardinals, traveling around. He told me he roomed with Harvey Haddix for a couple of years. When he was a rookie, Haddix was a rookie, he roomed with Harvey Haddix, the star pitcher who later pitched a perfect game and then lost it in extra innings because he didn't get any run support.
Yeah.
And I asked Solly what Haddix was like, and he said, inscrutable. You just never knew what was on his mind.
Sounds like Charlie Morton.
It does sound like Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton could be the Harvey Haddix of this last generation.
Could be.
Well, anyhow, I asked him if there was anyone who played with who was just a complete jerk. And he said without hesitation, yeah, Bosco was.
Bosco? As in...
the chocolate syrup.
Yeah.
I said, I had the same reaction. I'm like, well, Bosco, to everyone out there, Bosco was a chocolate syrup that was really popular back in the day. But I've never heard of a baseball player from back then nicknamed Bosco. So I asked who it was, and he was like, oh, what was his name? What was it? I mean, he was like 92 at the time. Yeah, right?
Of course.
So I start naming Cardinals from the early 50s teams that he must play on.
Yeah.
Stan Musial, Del Rice, Harry Burkeen, Enos Slaughter. He goes, Slaughter, that was him. Boy, was he a jerk.
Bosco boy.
Bosco. I find that interesting. Slaughter was from North Carolina, so he was called Country by a lot of country Slaughter.
Of course.
But I love that Solly that he remembers Bosco more
instead of Slaughter. I mean, it makes sense.
The thing is, I found this interesting because in all the baseball books I'd read when I was a kid, everybody was a great guy. Even the Black Sox, everyone was, they
stand-up dudes.
Even though, they took money to lose the World Series.
But they were nice guys.
You don't get like the negative color like that really until like the 60s and the 70s, which you get every day now.
Yeah.
And I suppose TV changed that because, I mean, you can actually see all the players day after day after day instead of relying on newspaper reporters who are friends with the players and who might not get any more scoops if they badmouth the players, right?
Speaking of scoops, speaking of Bosco, that is George Costanza's PIN code at the ATM in that episode of Seinfeld.
It's Bosco.
It's Bosco.
That's great. Wow, I wonder if he knew Enos Slaughter, because Slaughter died, I think, in 2009.
You might be onto something there, but what did he say about Bosco?
He said, he once kicked his wife out of a moving car.
Yo!
Yeah. And I was like, no, I definitely did not read about that in any of my childhood baseball books or anything like that.
What a jerk.
Yeah,
what the hell?
From
That's your wife, bro. You're kicking your wife out of a car.
A moving car.
What?
From the mouth of Solly Hemus, who autographed a ball for me. He had a bunch of baseballs there for such situations, and he signed one for me. And it was a really fun afternoon, and I was on cloud nine, meeting a big leaguer who played in the 1950s. Now, Solly died not long after that, so I was pretty lucky.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
What about, Slaughter as a player?
Well, he's in the Hall of Fame, so he was really, really good. But like Musial in the 40s, Slaughter was a slugger more than a home run hitter.
Okay.
He never hit more than 18 homers in a season, but he hit as many as 52 doubles, 17 triples, 130 RBIs. He had a 300 career average. Interestingly enough, though, if this was Sluggers of the 1950s, I would not include him.
Oh, how come?
Well, in the 7 years he played between 1940 and 1949, because he was away for 3 because of the war. So the 7 years that decade, he finished in the league top 10 in slugging 6 times, and never in the decade slugged below 450 at all. But after 1949, when he hit 336 and slugged 511, he never slugged above 450 for the rest of his career, and he retired in 1959, so 10 more years.
Well, that's kind of like a pretty big change in his style or his approach to the game.
Yeah, it is.
In a way.
Is. Yeah.
And with all that, contemporaries no longer alive these days. All people remember is things like the mad dash.
That's true, but
it's quite sad, actually.
It's pretty impressive dash, though.
Man, the postseasons in the 1940s were insane. It seems like every year something super exciting happened. I mean, Mickey Owens dropped third strike in 1941 and the mad dash in 46. Bill Bevins almost no-hitter in 1947. Ties for first place on the last day of a season, like every year after the war. That's just crazy fun baseball. That's exciting baseball.
And it's going to get more exciting because you just reminded me of a really good sidetrack.
Yes, please. Let's do it.
Okay. Talking about all the 1940s pennant races in the postseasons reminded me of the first one of the decade, 1940, right? Okay. Specifically, the 1940 American League pennant race between Cleveland and Detroit. Now, have you ever heard of a guy named Floyd Giebel?
I have not.
Floyd Giebel won exactly 3 games in his entire Major League career with a .399 career ERA.
So not exactly a star.
No, and yet, if you're from Cleveland and you're old enough, you hate Floyd Giebel.
I think I'm going to like the story.
So, on September 27th, 1940, the Tigers need one more win to clinch the pennant. And they're playing the Indians in Cleveland, who they're vying with for the pennant. Yeah. Cleveland is going to start pitching Triple Crown winner and 27-game winner Bob Feller, Hall of Famer Bob Feller, who opened that season with a no-hitter on opening day. So the Tigers manager wants to save his aces Bobo Newsom and Schoolboy Rowe for the next game, figuring Feller will likely win this one.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Yeah.
But all he's got rested is 30-year-old Giebel, called up the week before, but who did pitch a great win in his start the week before when he was called up. So he's going to go with him against the mighty Hall of Famer, fireballer Bob Feller in the prime of his career.
No pressure on Giebel at all. I mean, this is no pressure.
Just a walk in the park for Giebel.
That's insane heat.
So you need some background about 1940.
Okay.
This was the year of the Crybaby Rebellion. This was the Indians players endlessly complaining about Cleveland manager Ossie Vitt to owner Alva Bradley. It was a big deal.
Okay.
And the Cleveland Plain Dealer wrote this. The Indians say it is difficult to hustle for Vitt. They charge that he has destroyed their spirit and wrecked the incentive to play winning ball. It isn't merely that they dislike him, for other managers have been disliked by their players and still made a success. Their chief complaint is that he has forfeited their respect and caused them to lose face with other teams.
And yet here they are fighting for a pennant.
Well, that blew over, but it was actually a big deal.
Sounds like it.
We can cover it one day in more depth. There are books about it, the Crybaby Rebellion, if you want to look it up.
Oh, wow.
Thing is, the Cleveland players after that were called the Crybabies around the league. And when they had games in Detroit, the fans threw baby bottles and diapers onto the field, and they were either calling them or chanting Cleveland Crybabies, or calling them Papis, which is the plural of papoose, I guess, because, being Indians, papoose. Yeah. So papis would be... I have no idea if that's actually the plural, but that's what they did.
Okay.
So now this game in Cleveland with 45,000 fans, they're there. They shower the Tigers with eggs and fruit and everything. And Time magazine would write that by the fourth inning, the field looked like a vegetable plate. Bob Feller gave up only 3 hits, but one of them was a 2-run homer by Rudy York. And those 2 runs were all Floyd Giebel needed as he shut out the Indians to win the 1940 pennant for Detroit. And it was Giebel's 3rd and final career victory.
What a story. Jeez.
Yeah. The 1940s are often overlooked in baseball history, but they might be my favorite decade. Just total excitement year after year after year, especially after we've done all this series and stuff. I like the 1880s too. You know.
I mean, of what we have discussed over the last couple, like 5 episodes or whatever, I just am convinced that the 1940s is peak baseball to me. Like just in terms of how competitive it was, like you said, everything was a nail biter.
Yeah.
Every World Series had some controversy or like some actual like highlight that happened that made it a legendary kind of like series. And I think that's really, really cool.
And you got integration, and you got these big stars
100%,
like
100%.
Usual Williams.
It's baseball the way it should have been played since the start, maybe.
Yeah,
in a way.
I think so. I agree. And in the 50s, TV changed that a bit. So
of course.
People would watch TV at home, and they weren't coming to the ballparks. And the ballparks, like in New York, were.
Can you imagine listening to this on the radio?
Yeah,
dude, I would.
The Mickey Owen drop strike.
I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
I would be like, out of my skin.
You're a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. You are one strike away with a full count.
I dropped to my knees.
And the base is empty, and you lose.
Drop to my knees.
That's how good those Yankees were, though.
Yeah, that's insane. But like you're saying it like we are finished for today.
That is, you know me well. We are finished for today. There are a couple more guys I could maybe cover, like Braves third baseman Bob Elliott, who won an MVP in 1947. But I can talk about him some other time.
Well, this was an excellent miniseries.
It was, and I think next time we'll talk about something that has to do with pitchers. Maybe. I have not decided yet.
All right. Okay, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And let us know what you think on Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube. The podcast is there as well. And of course, join us on Patreon to get this content ad-free and early. And obviously to make us filthy rich, because I would love to get rich off baseball.
Shall I take us home?
Yes, please.
That is it for me today. That is it for today from me, Indy Nidell.
And me, Burns.
And the Baseball History Time Machine.